of all, I'm a professor at university in Gothenburg, where I live, in film. And we have fine arts, we have contemporary arts, a program for contemporary art just next to the film program. And so that's my, how can you say, like my first contact with the contemporary art world. And I think both good and bad about the contemporary art world. I think it's it of course has really good things, but also it feels like it's like repeating itself and being very conventional, and have a hard time to reinvent itself. I would say that the feeling is, when Duchamp put the pissoir into to the museum, then it was a provocation towards the room and provocation towards the white cube. And it feels like the institutions that are dealing with art is trying to redo the same kind of provocation, and it doesn't work anymore. And I think that you probably could be satirical towards the cinema industry in the same way as I'm trying to be satirical towards contemporary art, the scene of contemporary art. But seriously, isn't the scene of contemporary art a little bit more silly than other areas? I think so, actually. Well, I was making a feature film called Play in 2011, and it was about really young boys robbing other young boys in the city where I live, and you could tell that the adults they had a really hard time interacting and helping the kids that was robbed, because these events actually took place in the city. It's inspired of true events, the movie. And in order to break the bystander effect, the fact that we are getting paralyzed when we are in public spaces and we don't know who should take responsibility, me and a friend of mine decided to create a symbolic place where we should be reminded of our common responsibility in the public spaces. So the idea for the installation, or the idea for the symbolic place, started in 2011, and that was also the starting point of the idea to try to create a film about this symbolic place, and to try to highlight thematics as like humanistic thematics, and how do you do that in our time. So I guess this, like, the idea of the symbolic place was the start of the film. And we wanted to do something that is just as simple as a pedestrian crossing. A pedestrian crossing is like a couple of lines in the street where the car drivers are very careful with the pedestrians. And I think that was like a beautiful invention by human beings, that we actually have made a strong agreement that with a couple of lines in the street, the car should be careful with the pedestrians. And the idea of the square was to, with a couple of lines on the ground, make an agreement that we should be reminded of taking care of each other. So it was like trying to approach a humanistic thematic in a very, very simple way. No, but when it comes to cinema, I enjoy Haneke a lot. But I wanted to add some humor to the Haneke style. I think that's. I think that I love how he makes me concentrated when I'm watching his films. That he makes me like, okay, what is going on? I'm on my toes when I'm watching his film, and I think that's a quality that I really admire. But then I think for me that it have never been a contradiction between having a content that I think is important and trying to do something that is entertaining. So I wanted to combine these two things, basically. No, but I really like Buñuel, and I think the discreet charm of the Bourgeois is the best film title that have ever been. I think it's delicate. I love it, and I think that he also, in Viridiana, when this woman that is so good, she invites all the beggars to her house, and it ends up that they are raping her, and he has such a non-sentimental way of approaching important questions, and I think that's why he also was very provoking at that time. That he was describing the class and poverty and things like that in a complete new way. And still people are provoked of the way of describing poverty, that you want poor people to be more solidaric towards each other. Well, I'm sorry, they are not. And that's a problem, of course, for us when we were watching. And I think that Buñuel was really straightforward, and I love his films. I think that everybody that I've been working with, like an institution, and trying to like translate an art piece into public relations, or like to communicate something that is like more complex or whatever. Yeah, I mean, but I have been inspired of a PR agency called Studio Total in Sweden that made quite successful stunts. For an example, they had like the political party called the Feminists in Sweden. They were taking the average difference of a salary and burning them on a small barbecue in order to get attention about the differences between the salary between a woman and a man. So there are like a PR agency that you can Google if you want to, that is called Studio Total. And they have done like quite, I'd say, controversial PR stunts in order to raise attention to something, like political issues that they have thought have been important. But one of the goals when I was doing the film was not to make the PR agency guys cynical. I wanted them to be the most humanistic persons that I have ever portrayed in my movies. Maybe I didn't succeed, but because I wanted them to only do what it takes to get attention, and I wanted them to actually succeed. So I love the idea of that they have this humanistic project that they are supposed to do advertisement campaign for. And they do something that is completely cynical and anti-humanistic, but they actually succeed. So in the end, they get all the attention by the media that is coming there and asking, why did you do this cynical video? And they're like, it was only to raise attention to the art installation. What art installation is that? Well, it's called The Square, and everybody's like writing down, to try to, I wanted to make fun about media, not the PR agencies. Well, some that almost all the parts that is in the film, I have casted artists and curators that is on high positions in the Swedish art world. So I'm a little bit neutralized from the critics from them. Now all of them agree that they think the film is good.
You mean they were in the movie?
Yes.
Oh, right.
So like, for example, the monkey imitation scene, then the extras is like, it's just filled up with people that have important positions in the art world in Sweden that are sitting there. So, but I think that, one thing that the contemporary art world always does when you're trying to criticize it, you kick up open doors, that the doors are already open, and that's just a very cheap way of avoiding critics, I think. So, and of course I've heard this in Sweden. Well, it's kicking in open doors. We already have this discussion. Well, come on, as long as you are silly, you have to also understand that we will try to attack you in this way. So, but I also think that most of the critics that have a relationship to the contemporary art world, they see that I don't only think bad about the contemporary art world, of course, and they can see that in the film also. Yeah. Well, of course, it means that you get a lot of attention, and I think that, well, basically that's why participating in competition in Cannes is important. You know, that it's something very, very unique with Cannes, that you have like big commercial American movies next to a very small Iranian movie, and they are put into the same arena and fighting for the attention on the same level. That is really, really unique, and that's what I like about Cannes. And the Golden Palm in itself, in Sweden, it's almost, it's 66 years since a Swedish director won in Cannes. And in Sweden, you almost become like an institution when you win the Golden Palm. And then it's hard for the Swedish Film Institute that gives the money to say no to me now, which is fantastic, of course. Actually, I had one French actor in mind when I was trying to cast Claes Bang, and that was Jean Dujardin.
Jean Dujardin.
How do you say it?
Jean Dujardin.
Jean Dujardin. And he's almost like a copy of him, don't you think?
Il ressemble pas mal.
A little bit, okay. But when you pick a main character, I think it's important that he doesn't become too specific, because I think he has to be a projection surface for me to look at the human being rather looking at a specific character. And I think that Claes Bang, that plays the main character, he has that quality. I see he's representing someone, and that was important for me. And for an example, I was trying Dominic West for the main part, but Dominic West, he's such a strong character. He's too strong, Then I started to look at his behavior as very specific for him personally. And what I want to do is to highlight the main character's behavior, that his or her behavior is dependent on the position they have in a hierarchy, and also like the setup of the situation. That these are the ingredients that is like changing a person's behavior rather than personal specific differences between other people. And then Dominic West and Elisabeth Moss, I was in London doing a casting because I have an American agent, and they asked me, are there any English-speaking actors that you would like to meet? And then I made a list with a couple of them, and I did improvisations, because when I'm doing the casting, I love to play also myself. So for an example, when me and Elisabeth Moss was doing improvisations, we were dealing with the scene, how do we solve this, and you have been inside me, and I was playing that scene with her, and with Dominic West I was playing Elisabeth Moss' part. Then I was saying you have been inside me, and both of them just were really, really good. I think that Elisabeth Moss is a very intelligent actor. She understands the setup, she understands the situation, and then she does small things that adds so much. For an example, when she got the condom and she's leaving the room, the last step she took, she was going like instead of just leaving the room like that. But when she adds this little speed in the end, like then you are like twisting the scene once again. And for me, it was really pointing out her quality, that she's like, she gets it.
You know?